The signal came at 0412 ship time, riding a low band of radiation no human receiver should have noticed. A whisper folded inside a dying solar flare, tucked so far beneath the noise floor that only the most paranoid scanners, like those aboard Diana's wake, would have caught it. Scarlet Vane sat alone in the observation chamber, sipping cold recap from a cracked ceramic mug that bore the fading emblem of an academy that no longer existed. Outside the viewport, the stars bled amber and blue across a sprawl of motionless dust, an expanse known by void miners as the Cradle Nebula. To chart it was to trespass. To name it was to invite misfortune. But Scarlet had always been curious. The signal unfolded like a melody without sound. At first, she dismissed it as background drift. Then came the pattern. 3 harmonic pulses, a silence, a 4th pulse out of rhythm, then a lullaby. Not in words, but in intent. A soft, steady rhythm that stirred something in the recesses of her memory, something like being held, something like being known. The waveform shimmered against the holographic interface. Beneath the spectrogram, the AI's voice, Vanna, broke the silence. Unnatural repetition detected. Sequence matches no known linguistic trees. However, emotional resonance, maternal, nostalgic, sorrowful. Scarlet raised an eyebrow. We're reading feelings now, Vanna? The waveform bypasses standard cognition filters. It touches the limbic net directly. Permission to forward to Nora Halen. Scarlet hesitated. Nora, xenobiologist, codebreaker, empathic chaos in a lab coat, was asleep as far as Scarlet knew. But if anyone could extract meaning from the impossible, it was her. "Send it," she said, her voice low, almost reverent, transmitting. The signal continued to play, a looping curve of impossible beauty. For a moment Scarlet forgot where she was. The ship, the cold, the war they'd left behind. She felt cradled. Then came the moment the signal changed. It saw her, not literally. Of course, she told herself that. But the data pattern shifted mid-loop. The asymmetry corrected. The 4th beat aligned with her own biometrics. The lullaby. Changed key. Scarlet dropped the mug. It shattered on the metal floor. Recaf bled into the grating like oil. "Scarlet?" Nora's voice crackled through the comms before the channel fully opened. Groggy but alert. "Did you feel that?" Scarlet turned toward the console, her pulse racing. "Feel what?" A pause. "It knew my name." They stared at each other across the shared interface as the signal looped once more. This time the lullaby carried a hum like distant thunder, like a breath drawn through dying lungs. Scarlet tapped. A command, dragging the vector map wider. The origin point of the signal shimmered just past the nebula's edge, deep in the starless core where no natural transmission should propagate. Coordinates resolved. D-52, Shinsenetu, orphan moon wreck shell. Forgotten orbital husk. A graveyard. Scarlet looked back at Nora, whose eyes, still ringed with sleep, held the sharp glint of someone already too deep into the mystery to walk away. "Do we go?" Scarlet didn't answer immediately. The silence between them stretched until it felt like a vow. Then, plot a course. Outside, the stars shimmered, and in their midst, something vast and pink-skinned stirred, sleeping, waiting, remembering. The Diana's wake glided into the Cradle Nebula like a whisper slipping between the folds of a dream. Colors bled through the hull, sickly golds and bruised violets, flickering with unnatural frequency. The nebula was less a dust cloud and more a memory. Trailing filaments of forgotten stars, electromagnetic wails of long-dead suns, and pockets of space-time so warped that light seemed to hesitate. Scarlet stood at the helm, jaw tight, her fingers resting above the manual override. Auto-navigation had already begun to falter, compass readings drifted, and the inertial dampeners pulsed irregularly, as if the ship itself were breathing out of rhythm. "Gravity's acting drunk," she muttered. behind. Nora Halen floated into the cockpit, bare feet silent on the deck. She wore a tattered synth silk robe over her regulation uniform, her hair tied into a messy braid that coiled like ivy over her shoulder. Nora was holding a recording tablet, the signal's waveform still pulsing softly on its surface. Her eyes flicked toward the viewport. "It's like flying into a memory," she said, voice hushed. "Old and not ours." Scarlett didn't look away from the stars. No memory should echo that loud. Nora stepped beside her. "I've analyzed the signal. It's not random. The intervals adjust slightly every time we observe it, like it's learning. Listening." Scarlett's jaw tightened. "You think it's alive? I think it remembers being alive, and it wants to be again." Scarlett finally turned to face her. Vanna's diagnostics. Nora handed over a second tablet. Strange energy readings near the orphan moon wreck shell. Not radioactive, not gravitational. Organic resonance, like a heartbeat. Scarlett stared at the readings. What kind of moon pulses with a heartbeat? Nora didn't answer. Instead, she reached toward the nav console and zoomed in. There, deep in the center of the nebula, nestled between shattered satellite rings and the broken bones of a terraforming station, lay the orphan moon. It wasn't a moon, not anymore. Its surface was cracked and misshapen, its crust broken like the shattered shell of some long-abandoned chrysalis. Pale pink ridges, too symmetrical to be natural, stretched across the ruins, rising like bone beneath translucent skin. Between the fissures, threads of bioluminescence pulsed in rhythmic waves. It was massive, and it was breathing. Scarlett's blood went cold. "That's no geological formation," she whispered. "That's a body." They both stood in silence as the signal looped again, louder now. The lullaby no longer sounded distant. It sounded inside. Nora pressed her hand to her chest. "It's syncing with us. Biosignature imprinting. That's..." "Why, it changed." Scarlett turned sharply. "It's imprinting on us?" "No," Nora said slowly, brow furrowing. "On you." Scarlett's heart skipped. "What?" Nora's gaze was glassy, her voice suddenly distant. "It's been looking for you," Scarlett recoiled. "Snap out of it." Nora blinked rapidly, breath hitching. I'm fine. It felt like something reached through me, like a memory that didn't belong to me." The ship shuddered. Every console blinked, just once, and all the oxygen scrubbers fell silent. The Diana's wake hung suspended in the void, surrounded by the breathing ruin of the orphan moon. Then came the voice. Not over comms, not from the ship, from within their own heads, a voice impossibly vast, impossibly old. "You have arrived." Scarlett gripped the console. "Vanna, are you online? Did you hear that?" No response. The ship's systems flickered back on. Nora exhaled sharply. "Scarlett, it knows your name." Scarlett turned toward the moon, now fully illuminated in the nebula's soft poison glow. Somewhere beneath the crust, behind the bones of a false world, something stirred, and it was waiting for her. The dropship Pilgrim Seed detached from Diana's, wake with a metallic sigh, like the ship exhaling in relief. Scarlett sat in the pilot's cradle, tension coiled tight in her shoulders. Every part of her screamed to abort, to turn around, to let the mystery stay buried in nebular rot. But she had seen it now, felt it, that enormous pink-skinned form pulsing. Beneath the crust of the orphan moon wasn't just waiting, it had remembered her, or perhaps something like her. Behind her, Nora prepped their descent kit. Resonance readers, bioform samplers, and 2 neural recording bands. "I've mapped a fissure that runs deep into the crust," she said, brushing curls from her face. "It's not. A cave? It's shaped? Engineered? Like a throat?" Scarlett gave a dry smile. "You really know how to charm a landing party." The Pilgrim Seed rocked gently as it entered the moon's exosphere. There was no true atmosphere here, just chemical. Haze and the illusion of breath. Still, clouds hung like bruises over the horizon, drifting slowly across plains of glistening organic ridges. As they descended, the landscape came into focus. The orphan moon's surface was no longer geological. It was epidermal. Veins as thick as rivers pulsed with soft amber light. Bone-white structures arched across the terrain like frozen ribs. The ground beneath them, at first solid, shimmered with a biopolymer gloss, semi-translucent and damp, shifting subtly under their thrusters as if the moon itself was reacting to their weight. Scarlet tried not to imagine what would happen if it didn't like the pressure. They landed near the edge of a massive crevice. The scanner designated it Fissure A, but Nora had already nicknamed it the sternum. It gaped wide like a wound, spiraling downward into flickering pink light. Scarlet stepped out first. Her boots sank slightly into the surface with a soft, wet compress. The air smelled faintly of copper and flowers. Not decay, but something sweeter, something maternal. It was disarming. That made it worse. Nora followed, eyes wide, recorder in hand. "Scarlet, do you see this?" The wall beside them twitched, not violently, just a subtle ripple, like a sleeping thing disturbed by a breeze. Etched along its surface were spirals, strange glyphs formed of layered skin and bioluminescent veins. The patterns changed subtly, depending on where you stood, moving as if aware of your gaze. "It's communicating," Nora whispered. "This whole place is a language." "Then it's time to ask it a question," Scarlet said, activating her biocoms. "Vanna, are you receiving this?" Silence, only static. Scarlet turned back to Nora. "We're cut off." Nora didn't respond. She was staring into the fissure. Scarlet followed her gaze and saw, down in the depths, a figure, not moving, not beckoning, just there. Curled in the center of the chamber, half submerged in translucent membrane, was a humanoid form, easily 20 meters tall, skin soft rose gold, eyes closed, hair a crown of soft opalescent tendrils floating like seaweed in amniotic light. The being was beautiful, terrifying, sleeping. Scarlet's breath hitched. "What is she?" Nora stepped forward, voice caught in awe. "She's not architecture. She is the moon." Scarlet felt a sudden pull, not physical, but emotional. Something in her chest ached, a kind of grief, ancient and unfamiliar. She didn't understand it, couldn't. Then the being's eyes opened, not fully, just a sliver, enough to see her. No sound emerged, no motion, but the message was undeniable. "You are not the first." And then suddenly Scarlet remembered, not a memory of her own, but hers, the being's. A flash of planets burning, ships screaming into black, hands, tiny human hands, reaching into her eyes, cutting pieces of her memory away. Scarlet collapsed to one knee, gasping. Nora rushed to her side. "Scarlet!" "I saw," Scarlet choked. "They did something to her, to this place. They took from her. They used her." Nora looked back toward the immense being as her body slowly began to rise, not floating, not standing, but becoming. Tissues, flexed, organs shifting, ribs bending open like petals. "She's waking," Nora said. "No," Scarlet whispered, stepping backward. "She's remembering." And as the being stood, her towering form bathed in starlit membranes, the entire moon seemed to breathe in. Scarlet knew. Whatever was coming, it wasn't just ancient. It was personal, and she had just stepped into its dream. The being stood taller than any living creature Scarlet had ever seen, taller even than the harvested husks of biomechs back on Titanus Sikos. Her body was elegant, but ancient, as if carved from stardust and memory. Her skin shimmered with iridescent pink and rose gold hues that shifted with every breath, every twitch of the massive, jointless limbs unfolding from the membrane. Scarlet couldn't speak. Her voice sat like iron behind her teeth. Nora gripped her arm, whispering through breathless awe. "She's not a relic. She's not sleeping." Scarlet swallowed hard. "She's waking up." They backed away, instinct pulling them from the edge of the amphitheater like hollow. Around them the walls began to vibrate, not with sound, but with intent. The glyphs engraved into the living bone pulsed in waves, organizing themselves into lines, as though composing a sentence in real time. Scarlett's ocular HUD tried to translate, untranslatable, idiomatic memory encryption detected. "I think she's thinking," Nora whispered, eyes wide. "No," Scarlett replied, "she's remembering." A low rumble echoed through the chamber, not from the creature's mouth, but from the walls. The bone around them thrummed with a resonance so deep it struck their chests like a heartbeat. On impulse, Scarlett reached out and touched the glyph-lined wall. Instantly, pain. A lance of memory cut through her mind. She wasn't herself anymore. She was drifting. A child held in the vast, soft hand of the pink-skinned being, long before she had become this enormous, forgotten relic. Her name, Scarlett's, wasn't hers anymore. It was being borrowed, like a coat wrapped around another's identity. She saw through the eyes of someone else, someone the being had once known. The memory snapped back. Scarlett staggered. Nora caught her, frantic. "What happened?" "I was someone else." She showed me a memory, not hers, mine, but not me. Scarlett's voice cracked. She turned her eyes to the creature. She knew whoever I looked like. The being moved, slow, deliberate. Her gaze drifted across the chamber until it met Scarlett's again. This time, her expression shifted. Not anger, not fear. Recognition. A deep, bone-etched recognition. Nora stepped forward, raising her wristband translator. "We're researchers from the Andari Commission. We didn't come to hurt you." The being blinked slowly. Then, without parting her lips, a voice echoed in their minds. Cold, distant, layered like multiple instruments out of tune. "You are echoes. You speak with borrowed blood." Scarlett's knees gave. She clutched her head. "She's inside." That voice, "Nora, it's not sound. She's pushing into our thoughts." More glyphs ignited along the walls. They spiraled around the chamber like a growing sentence. This time, Scarlett's HUD caught fragments, remembered flesh, inherited guilt, return of the twin soul. Nora whispered, "She thinks you're someone else, or maybe a copy." Scarlett's pulse roared in her ears. "I don't care who she thinks I am," she muttered, rising. "I want to know who she is." And then, the glyphs aligned in perfect sync. The chamber went silent. A single phrase etched itself across the wall, glowing with bioluminescent certainty. Murren, the name echoed in both women's minds. The being's name. Scarlett stepped closer. "Mirren," she said aloud. At the sound, the creature's gaze softened, the bones of the chamber flexing inward like a cathedral exhaling relief. It was a name she hadn't heard in millennia, perhaps, but one she still wore with pride. Scarlett reached out again. This time, the contact didn't bring pain. It brought warmth, like a welcome. And behind her, Nora's scanner spiked to full capacity. She gasped. "Scarlett, her neural net, it's not artificial. It's like a planetary nervous system. She's the moon. Her consciousness is interwoven through every ridge and crevice." Scarlett looked up at Mirren, then around the chamber. "They didn't build around her," she said slowly. "They built her, or worse. They grew her," Nora finished, "to contain something." A new realization slithered through Scarlett's mind. What if Mirren wasn't the danger? What if she had been the prison, and now she was remembering how to escape? The descent into the vaults began not with a door, but with a breath. The walls behind Mirren's massive form stirred open, not with machinery or sound, but with organic movement. Bone folding into bone, light, sliding along translucent veins that pulsed faintly beneath the surface like ancient arteries. Scarlett and Nora stepped forward, wordless, as if speaking might break the fragile, surreal gravity of what was unfolding. "Mirren is guiding us," Nora whispered, voice hoarse with awe. Scarlett didn't reply. Her mind was still echoing with Mirren's presence, echoes not in words but weight, memories like pressure, thoughts not her own, coiling beneath her skull. The passage curved downward, impossibly vast. The deeper they walked, the less their suit's systems understood. Gravity shimmered. Time felt uncertain, stretched in places and compressed in others, like the corridor itself was thinking and remembering. Their lights began to flicker, not from interference, but rhythm, in sync with the walls. "Scarlet," Nora said quietly. "These aren't just tunnels, they're neural branches." "You think we're inside her brain?" "No," Nora said. "I think we're inside her soul." They reached the first chamber. It opened like a gash into space itself, black. Pulsing, too wide to be inside any moon or structure known to human architecture. The vault's ceiling stretched like the inside of a cathedral. Curved and organic, its center dominated by a suspended object spinning slowly in place, a crystalline sphere, floating, pulsing with memory. And inside the sphere, an image. Scarlet stepped forward. Her boots barely made a sound. Her own face stared back, but not as she was, as she had been, or might have been. Wearing different armor, markings along her cheekbones she didn't recognize, eyes glassy, with stars. She remembers. "You differently," Nora said behind her. "Or she remembers another me." Scarlet reached for the sphere, and the chamber reacted. Tendrils of light spiraled from the ceiling, linking to the sphere, then to the floor, then to Scarlet's own chest. For a moment her breath caught. Too much light, too much memory. Then, a vision, not hers. She stood on the rim of a dying world, not Earth, not even human, red sand beneath her feet, 2 moons above. She watched herself, this version of her, kneel before Mirren, smaller than, not yet immense. "You will be the anchor," the creature said. "Your name will burn into time, but only if you forget it first." Scarlet screamed. But in her mind, the vision shattered. She collapsed. Nora was at her side in a second. "Scarlet," I saw. A past. A version of me. Or maybe someone she used to be. "Scarlet, look," Nora said. Above them, the walls had changed. Dozens of crystalline spheres now floated where only one had been, each showing a different version of the same woman, each one staring back, each one remembering. Scarlet backed away. "This isn't a vault," she whispered. "It's a mausoleum." Nora turned pale. Of what? Of me. And then, for the first time, Mirren's voice. Returned, not a whisper, not an echo, but thunder that trembled the marrow. "You are my shadow. You were always meant to return, but you forgot your shape." Scarlet clutched her head. "Why me? What am I to you?" Silence. Then only 2 words. "Key. Vessel." Scarlet's breath caught in her throat. The chamber dimmed. The spheres began to darken one by one. "Scarlet!" Nora grabbed her arm. "Something's coming. From below." And it was. A rumble. No, not a rumble. A pulse. A heartbeat. Not mechanical. Alive. The ground cracked. A voice, not Mirren's, but sharper, deeper, rose through the stone. Key detected. The vaults flared crimson. The walls shuddered. Something else had awakened, and it wasn't Mirren. The vault quaked, not with the force of tectonics, but as if existence itself had flinched. Scarlet stumbled backward, the crimson glow painting her face in arterial light. The crystalline spheres began to pulse, erratic, stuttering, as though panicked. A chorus of silent memories trembling in their glass graves, and beneath them all something stirred, something older than Mirren. Nora aimed her light downward. The ground beneath the vault was no longer stone. It was porous, shifting, almost breathing. Through its translucent layers, they glimpsed the shape, massive, undefined, not a body, not quite, more like a consciousness condensed into form. Then the voice came again. Key confirmed. Accession event, imminent. Scarlet grabbed Nora's hand, dragging her backward toward the tunnel they'd come from. But the passage had vanished. Folded. Shut! The living walls had rearranged, trapped. "Scarlet," Nora whispered. "Look." The crystalline spheres were rising, floating, rotating like moons around an invisible sun. Each showed an image, a version of Scarlet, suffering, fleeing, kneeling, dying, And all with one constant, the presence of something else, behind her, watching, waiting. A new voice, not machine, not Mirren, but raw thought, slithered through the air. You opened her. You made her remember. That is your sin. Scarlet spun around. Who's speaking? What are you? Silence. Then movement. Shape uncoiled from beneath the glassy floor. Not seen. Inferred. As if the space itself bent around the presence of it. No eyes, no limbs, just awareness draped in gravity and forgetting. It spoke in Scarlet's mind now, brushing against her childhood memories, her dreams, her secret. Fears. She was the lock. You were the key. Now we remember each other. Scarlet's breath caught in her throat. She turned to Mirren's still form, barely visible behind the spheres. "Mirren!" she shouted. "What is this? What did you—" "Seal away," Mirren's voice came back, fractured, distant, as if echoing from deep beneath 1,000 oceans. My heart was the prison. I tried to forget. You made me remember. The thing below surged. The vault began to distort. Walls curved, twisted. The crystalline spheres screamed, not in sound, but in resonance. Pain radiated through Scarlet's skull like needles of ice. She dropped to her knees. Nora pulled her up, shouting through gritted teeth, "You're connected to it. Break it! Sever the bond!" "I can't," Scarlet gasped. "It's in me now. It always was." She touched the nearest sphere. Her own face stared back. Then, slowly, it morphed, not into another version of her, but a hybrid, part Scarlet, part Mirren, and something else lurking beneath their fused gaze. Nora's voice cracked with fear. "Scarlet, listen to me. This isn't you. It's rewriting you." But Scarlet was already seeing through 3 sets of eyes, hers, Mirren's, and the others. The vault shuddered. The ceiling cracked, not with debris, but with memory, bleeding down in brilliant ribbons of impossible color. A song began to play, ancient, wordless, and somehow familiar. It came from her own mouth, from Mirren's, and from the thing that waited before names. The harmony was unholy. Scarlet screamed, but only in her mind. Outwardly her body stood still, eyes blank, lips parting to speak. "I am the gate. I am the wound. Through me, the forgotten remember." Then Nora moved. With trembling hands she raised the pulse detonator they'd brought for excavation purposes, a last resort device meant to disrupt geological anomalies. She stared at Scarlet, jaw tight. "I'm sorry," she whispered. And she threw it into the heart of the floor. The pulse exploded in pure sound, disruptive, chaotic. Not fire, not light, but a shattering of frequency. The vault howled. The spheres cracked. The thing recoiled, and Scarlet collapsed. Silence returned. Scarlet lay still, breath shallow, skin glowing faintly with the same starlit shimmer that had once coated Mirren. Nora knelt beside her. "Scarlet," she whispered. Scarlet's eyes opened, but something behind them had changed. "I saw it," she murmured. Nora froze. "What did you see?" Scarlet's voice trembled. "Not what it was." She looked up, "but what it wants to become." And from deep beneath them the heartbeat returned, slower, stronger, as if it had fed. Scarlet's dreams were no longer her own. She lay in a cot aboard the survey cruiser Stellarette, eyes fluttering beneath closed lids, whispering in languages no one had taught her. Nora sat beside her, exhausted but vigilant, watching the soft glow beneath Scarlet's skin fade and surge in rhythm with the unknown pulse that now echoed faintly through the ship's systems, despite being thousands of meters above the vault. No one could trace the source, because it wasn't transmitted. It was remembered. "Her vitals are stable," said Dr. Cale, reviewing the monitor with furrowed brows. "But the neural patterns, they're branching." "Branching?" Nora asked. The doctor hesitated. "She's thinking in multiple streams, like parts of her mind are splitting off to hold different thoughts simultaneously, like a network." "Or a hive," Nora muttered. She looked down at Scarlet's pale face. "You brought something back," she whispered, "and it's still inside you." Elsewhere on Stellarette, The research team reviewed what they'd pulled from the shattered vault: fragments of crystalline memory spheres, slivers of alien biometal, and one intact relic, a small obsidian disk that pulsed with residual heat. They hadn't figured out what it did, but it watched them. Every member of the crew felt it. On the third night after extraction, crew members began having identical dreams. A pink-skinned woman with white eyes, whispering a name that changed every time they remembered it. The dream always ended the same way. She lifted her hand toward the stars and bled light into the cosmos. Scarlett woke on the fourth day. Nora was by her side in seconds. Scarlett looked around the infirmary, her voice hoarse. "Where are we?" "Low orbit," Nora answered. "We got out. You collapsed after the pulse." "Whatever that thing was, it wasn't the only one," Scarlett said. Nora blinked. "What?" Scarlett sat up. Her eyes were sharp now, awake in a way that felt unnatural. She placed a hand on the wall, and the console lights flickered around them. "She was a beacon," she said quietly. "Mirren, not a god, not a monster. Just the first." "The first what, Scarlett?" "The first to remember the thing that lives in the fractures between stars." She paused, eyes clouding. She tried to bury it inside herself. "But now—" Nora waited. Scarlett looked up. "Now I'm the container." The pulse of the ship grew heavier, slower. It began syncing with Scarlett's own heart rate. Visibly. Monitors warped, lights dimmed. A voice, not from comms, not from speakers, filled the room. "Two are awake. One must forget." Scarlett clenched her fists. "It's coming for you next, Nora. Through me." Nora stood slowly, jaw tight. "Then we don't run. We finish what Mirren started." "And how do you plan to fight something that doesn't exist in one place?" Nora walked to the emergency case and withdrew a device, a contained fragment of the detonation pulse. "With what made it flinch the first time," she said. "We hurt its memory. We make it forget us." Scarlett met her gaze. It was still her, but only just. And somewhere in the constellations above, a blood-colored star flickered into existence as if something had looked down and remembered her name.